Sound of Lizzie eating. I hope you can see her. You can see my hair. Can you see Lizzie? This is Lizzie eating some cat food. I'm recording this random episode with Mercury here. It's Mercury is the ruler of the hour, and this is the day of the sun. So the sun is in. Oh, we just had a new moon yesterday. And the sun is in Mercury sign. So this is a good time to enjoy some Mercury vibes. I have here my Turkey subset. And it's one of the things I like is just turning on the camera and see what topics come up. So I'm going to I'm going to call on Mercury for his trustworthy, to shed the true light on things. I guess that would be the correct thing to do right now. Mercury itself is also in Gemini, so it's in 11 degree Gemini, but separating from a square to Saturn. We just had a new moon, so the moon is in 27 degrees Gemini. And there's a separate video on the new moon in Gemini. The ascendant is Sun ruled, with the ascendant on the lot of fortune. So Sunday, Sun ruled ascendant. We just had the moon growing over the sun, so new moon. Very much Sol, Mercury accentuated. The midheaven is Venus ruled in 0 degrees Taurus, just with the nodes. We're about to have the nodes switching to Libra and Aries. Venus is also in Sun's ruling and sextiling Mercury in 11 degrees Leo, co-present with the lot of fortune, the ascendant, Lilith, and Mars. So this is the chart of the day. Immediately I'm looking at this Uranus. So Uranus is in 21 degrees Taurus, Venus ruled, and is squaring Lilith. Okay, to a lesser degree squaring Mars. Why am I looking at this Uranus? It's not particularly triggered, but okay. We'll see. Lilith is, because Lilith is about to square Uranus. And it's funny that Lilith has been accompanying me for quite a while, especially during 2017 too, even more so 2018, 2019, to some degree 2020. And then I was called to work with Algol, and I didn't know. Suddenly I was conjuncting Algol, and I was called to work with Algol. So the archetype of Lilith. So the story of Lilith is basically she was she was Adam's wife, but she did not agree to be subjugated. She just wanted to be equal. And for this reason, she had to leave, simply because she was not agreeing to be subjugated. And so there are various stories of Lilith as the kidnapper of children, from her rage. And the stories of Lilith are kind of reminding me a bit also about Aries. And tomorrow I have an episode about Aries I need to prepare for. So Aries is now in Aries, and the new moon just accentuated on this Lilith applying to trine Aries. yeah, we had the asteroids. So when I talked about the new moon, we talked about the asteroids. There was this sextile with Pallas Athena, with Aries, with Juno, that I said could seem more promising than it actually is. But there were some good energies around the new moon, some light Gemini energies that is always lovely to have. Um, but why do I say that Lilith reminds me a bit of Aries? Because Aries is also the asteroid of that which was ostracized for desiring to be equal. Okay? And look at the story of Aries. She simply is um, about, and she's sitting pretty on my Mercury, is probably why I'm talking about her. Um, it was about, they found out astrologically, they found out the, the planet Aries, and it was a bit bigger than Pluto. So instead of saying we found another planet, they said no, Aries is not a planet, and therefore they demoted Pluto from being a planet as well. So it kind of makes no sense. It's just like Aries is a bit bigger than Pluto. It makes sense that we will call Aries a planet, but it did not make any particular sense what people actually chose to do, and this was the scientific community, and Aries has a lot to do with science. People who have hard aspects between Lilith and the moon, they can tell that science plays a big role in life. Okay, the scientific thought, the democration question of sciences, it plays a big role in life, and with the moon it can even play with relationships. So I can attest to that. I have the moon squaring Lilith natally. It was squaring, squaring Aries natally. And if you think about Lilith as this woman who is considered the first feminist, she just wants to have the same respect as Adam and to be with him, not subjugated to him, but she was cast away. Aries, she just is, but her very being, okay, her very being is causing so much turmoil for what seems to be no reason. She's just like, astrologically, she's just a bit bigger than Pluto, so she's a planet. So we discovered another planet. Where is the problem? Okay, this is a scientific question on the Aries. Okay, it's a scientific question. Like, why is it even a question? Something comes up that makes the scientific community throw away its previous definition, but in a way that is demoting. And for no reason, and for no scientific reasoning. If I think about people who had aspects to Lilith, it was Albert Einstein when he discovered things that were alluding to what we now call quantum theory. He said it was difficult for him to accept. I don't know if he genuinely said that the God does not play dice with the universe or what. Like, I don't know, but it was difficult for Albert Einstein to accept his own theory. Okay, and so if Lilith is more about the personal story, especially in Leo, the personal story of being ostracized or of the, like, hey, I just wanted to see you eye to eye, and you try to subjugate me. That's something that I won't take. I could be with you if you looked at me as equal. And so Aries is taking it several steps forward. Although Lilith begins to do that as well. Lilith is has this feminine rage of wanting to make things equal and being even vengeful when this is not so. Then Aries is more, I'm going to refute a paradigm. It's about that's why I was looking at Uranus to begin with, is the scientific revolution, because Uranus is revolution. And Aries is basically the way we see the world. We discover something new, we discover new data that forces us to change the way we see the world. But our temptation is to throw away. We say, oh, Pluto is not a planet. Okay. And it's not necessarily the right thing to do. Okay, so Aries does not necessarily come to refute the paradigm, but us as humanity can tend to see it that way. Aries is also associated with transgender people, and you think about the way feminism was looking before Aries was accentuated, and then transgender people kind of threatening the core of what feminists who didn't get to the essence of feminism um, are shaken by, because those feminists that they just wanted to be traditional women and have not to be raped, which is logical. It's like they cared about not to be raped, but they didn't care about the rest of the stuff. Like they just wanted to be to have certain types of freedoms, or to vote, or not to be raped, or maybe to some extent have their own financial stability. But they were not coming to get at the essence of the order of society. Okay, and then comes the transgender woman, or the woman with the penis, and she says, "I want the rights that feminists enjoy, plus gender affirming operation." And now it runs into tremendous difficulties from the types of feminists that did not get at the essence of why feminism even came about, that was to change the order of society into a more equitable order. Okay, and so with Uranus and Taurus, we have that in regards to food. With Aries in Aries, we might also have that in regards to means of survival, to war tactics, and we are forced to reintegrate the notion that if we want to respect boundaries, we need it all across the board. Okay, so let's say you were the type of person that you got harassed, and you didn't go through this process of, if I'm hitting on a man, okay, then I want to make sure that they are in alignment with what I'm doing, just as I would want them to make sure of the same thing with me. But you didn't go there, then Aries is going to come and say, well, listen, the way you talk about men, the way you treat men, is like those people that were treating you badly. And we just need to change that. But then the temptation would be to throw away the achievements of feminism, which is not where we're supposed to go in society. That's on a social level. There are many other things to do with social level. If you think about the rights of the individual, and the Aries square with Pluto. So definitely, why should a refugee live in a house or sleep in a bed or have lesser conditions than any other citizen? Okay, why should a refugee be good with scraps of food and like whatever is left? Like, why should a refugee be treated less respectfully than a citizen? Okay, and all the questions that this evokes. This is why I keep reiterating the message of in praise of tolerance, because we cannot expect for more than tolerance when things are so radically different and go against the grain, as in the case of Aries. And it's an easier said than done teaching, but it definitely needs to be said. So that's a part of the things that are coming up as the nodes are approaching Aries. That would mean we're gonna have the nodes on Aries for pretty much the next eclipse. I'm not gonna go to the next eclipse right now. Yeah, we just have a slight new moon. Um, but it is something that I was looking at, the 2024. And we already had an eclipse involved with Aries. Um, yeah, and I think around that time, I don't remember exactly around what time, but we had, I think it was a transgender mass shooter. So transgender man mass shooter in the United States. Um, and that is one thing that I can say maybe that has to do with Aries. Um, Reiterating on the message that if people are pushed to corners where they, their autonomy over their body is not granted, don't expect them to appreciate, like, don't expect them to, like, if you don't have value for their lives, don't expect them to value the lives of other people. We must make sure um, that we're tolerant, and that tolerance means that your resources are allocated also to people who do things that you abhor with those. And some of these things, I'm not saying, God forbid, violating the rights of living people, but some of these things are abortions. Some of these things are um, smoking drugs because they still don't have housing. Some of these things are quite difficult, okay, or investing resources to a cause that you say, oh my gosh, I don't think we can save this person, but we still invest resources. This is a part of humanism, um, and then feminism, and so on and so forth. Because the people that you leave out in the cold, some of them will die, but it's enough for one person that is surviving this situation. And most people, most tyrants that we had, if we talk about people like, I think also Stalin, Mussolini, to some degree Adolf Hitler, um, or these people experience some sort of an isolation, some sort of an exile. And I keep saying this over and over again. This is not in advocacy of Hitler. This is just to show you, okay? When we were students in academia, we studied about the Second World War as well, and we saw some pictures that Hitler painted. He was painting nature as it was in a time where all the artists were impressionists or surrealists, and it was not relevant for the time, so he did not get accepted into academia. And so, funnily enough, the doctor that taught us and showed us this picture was a very intelligent person. Eventually, he would be the person that I would have the conflict with during the Me Too era. But he said, well, he wasn't such a great painter. He was painting nice pictures, but it wasn't relevant for the time, so it didn't get accepted. Like, what did he want? And there is this song by Georg Kreisler that's called Musikkritika. And it basically talks about how the music critiker likes everything, but there's nothing that he hates more than music. And he keeps criticizing music, and that's what he gets his endeavor of. And as you study art, as you study history, the last thing you want is to be that Musikkritika, because Hitler was painting nice pictures. If he was given grants to just paint, even though it seems like, who cares about these pictures of nature now? First of all, things always come back around. You would look back into the days, and there was this young artist, Hitler, Adolf, and he was painting nature per se at the time where everybody was painting other things. And maybe with the years, maybe after his death, people would look and say, oh, it was a very nice painter. He just paints simple nature without all this cacophonia of this, what I feel about the sun. But eventually he was not getting funds, and it's not about getting accepted to academia. He could not just paint. And so for a person like this, whose life path is about artistic work, is about those things. And when humanity doesn't tolerate them, they don't give them a place to be, then if a person like that, the internal experience is, I don't have a place to be. So he believes that the entire existence is about fighting, and only the strongest or the fittest survive. And there were enough, from eugenics to whatnot, to he was not the first person who turned Darwin into a satire of itself. There were a lot of people who were looking at trying to improve the race, even the muscle Jews, okay, that were affected by eugenics, and they treated Holocaust survivors as the lean Jew and the weak Jews. There was not memorial for Holocaust survivors until the 50s, if I'm not mistaken, in Israel. Okay, in Israel, I think the mid 50s or even the 60s, there was no Memorial Day. Um, and of course, people did not get the money that they were deserving from Germany. Like my family did not get money. I don't know if it's simply because or if this money was stolen. And some of that was to build Israel, but some of that was because of the view that the Jews that were in the Holocaust, they were the lean Jew, they were the weak Jew, and they were not the Jew that would have basically people in the 1930s were returned from the Zionist settlements in Israel back to what would be Nazi Germany, already when there were sanctions against them, because there was fear that the people who will come here will look for a hospice rather than starting or building a settlement, building something new. All those things are very dangerous, because when you have a person who likes to paint pictures, what seems to be completely harmless, they may seem useless to you, but a completely harmless human being, and they don't even get the ability to have a safe existence by painting, by looking at nature. It's kind of like a monk, okay? You look at nature, and to paint all these things in accuracy, you need to observe a lot. It's kind of like a meditation, and then you paint. And, if anybody wanted to cure Hitler, they would probably send him to a mindfulness meditation where he observes nature and then maybe to paint it if he wants to do something, is what he did, okay? But it was taken away. And eventually, what Hitler would come to do with his occultism, with the symbols that he used, would be, if you have the question, what if the political arena or the mundane world or the world affairs during the 1930s, 1940s would be a surrealistic painting or an expressionist painting, then the number one example, of course, you have fascism, not just Mussolini, but fascism. There was also artistic movement that took from the brutality movement in art, but Hitler was also basically painting a political picture of a surrealistic painting or an impressionistic painting in real life. Okay, he was not accepted to academia because his artwork was too simplistic. He was looking at nature and he was painting what he was seeing and beautifying it. But it was not what they wanted. They wanted him to move people. He definitely is remembered as a person who moves people, but unfortunately, his art took such a road that he went down as one of the most hated tyrants of people. And so people that you ostracize, people that you castrate, they come back from exile and they make social revolutions and they make scientific revolutions and they create havoc. And so and if you were the psychologist, if let's say Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler would come to you and you are a clinical psychologist with the body, mind, and so and so, and they would tell you, listen, I am thinking about the genocide. I am thinking about everybody who cannot work, they must be killed. I am thinking about all these things. And you would say to them, You know what, Mr. Hitler, okay, dear Adolf, you see the birds, you see the fields, you see the trees. What about I give you a class, okay? You like to create stuff, okay? You go with nature and you paint the most simple pictures that you can imagine. Paint the birds, record the songs of the birds singing, paint the trees. Okay, if it's difficult for you to meditate and you need to be active, take your hands, start painting just what you see. No interpolation, no interpretation, just paint what you see. Just focus on this and paint what you see. And see, maybe it will give you peace of mind. This is what Hitler was doing naturally. Okay, I cannot reiterate this over and over again. I cannot stop reiterating this because I cannot stop delivering how important it is. It's not advocacy for a Führer. It is understanding how we as society push people to the certain point where they're just people. Okay, a transgender woman or man is just a transgender woman or man, right? A person who makes art or makes or studies a certain topic that doesn't seem relevant for the times is just a person that does that. Okay? But when we as society do not allow for these people to have housing, to have food, to have the means to fulfill the creative endeavors that are peaceful, eventually, at the end of the day, no matter how much you abhor a useless artist that paints the same old pictures, no matter how much you think this is useless and they're not the best, they're not the top notch, so that's why they didn't get to academia and not relevant. You know, you're like this Musikkritiker. At the end of the day, it's those people. If you push them so much, so far away from just doing what they do here, they will still fulfill their life mission, but now it would be added a social revolution to that. And I want to return to Aries. When Aries was discovered astrologically, it was just we discovered another planet that's a bit bigger than Pluto. That's what we discovered. Okay, if I want to look at it scientifically, we discovered another body in space that was a bit bigger than Pluto. Okay, that was the data. That was the data. And then what we made of it is to say, no, Aries is not a planet. It cannot be. Then okay, then we have to say Pluto is not a planet either, because Pluto is a bit smaller than Aries, and we take size as a part of our definition of what is a planet. So if I go back to this story, something very innocent happens. There's a certain being. It should not provoke this much controversy. Okay, it should not provoke this much controversy. There's a certain being called Aries. I can't even begin. I have no idea why people decided that Aries cannot be a planet, and therefore, if that means that Pluto is not a planet, then we are okay with this. Okay. Listen to your story. This being cannot be. And so not only that this being cannot be, all the things that we have gave place to in the world, we cannot give them a place in the world right now. Okay? This is not Aries. This is humanity. And it's happening for no reason. No reason. Okay? There's no reason on earth why a person that is naturally doing everything you would advise a person who considers homicide, genocide, brutality, sadism, okay, and they just paint nature instead, naturally. They just paint nature. They just want to paint nature. They want a grant so that they can study that and they can become maybe famous artist one day. They do naturally the things that if somebody came to anybody's clinic and say, well, I'm considered to slaughter the entire humanity, but the people who are most strong and able and fit to work. Okay, you would tell them, well, you said previously you know at the beginning of our meeting you said you just came back from a walk in nature, and you said you really liked that. I asked you if you appreciate nature, and I say you want to destroy it and destroy nature together with that. I said, no, I don't want to destroy nature. I just want to destroy people because they're horrible. They're not functional. They're not working. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And maybe there is one good race that should stay, but the rest of them is like they're just taking space on Earth. It's not. And if somebody came like that and you were a healer, a doctor, or whatnot, you say, well, this person appreciates nature. Why won't I say, you know what? You take a canvas, you take some colorings, you say you like to create. Go with this nature, sit with this nature, and I want you to look at the tree and paint the tree exactly like you see it. That's what Hitler did. That's the myth we had in academic society, in a psychotherapeutic society, and during Hitler's time, we already had psychotherapy, we already had Jung, we already had Freud. We all and Jung also denotes mindfulness. Okay, Jung also denotes mindfulness. So yes, so reflection not only of the self but observation. We already had this as humanity. There was a person that was naturally doing a mindfulness practice that is artistic, not making, see, not pushing to express certain things that because everybody does that. Okay, so Hitler was the Gedel point in the artistic community. Everybody wanted to paint the sky yellow and the sun purple and the trees magenta because that's how they felt about trees, and that's lovely. There's nothing wrong with that. But in a land where everybody is special, there was this person who was just painting nature, was painting trees. We didn't give that person a place to be. Okay. Eventually, the experience that Hitler made people experience in general, not just Jews, not just gays, not just disabled people, even Irish people. He would constantly poke to see how long past the generations are you Irish. So even if you are Irish of your ancestry, even then you have to prove yourself, you have to show yourself, you have to be like this, and you have to have the family like this, and you were not given a place to be. Whoever you were during Hitler regime. Okay, Germans hate Hitler even more than some people who were hurt by Hitler, because they were hurt by Hitler too. And he gave everyone the experience that he was given. He was given a place where what he does, who he is, has no place. And he must fight for every single minute of his life. Because if you take a fish out of the water, if you take an artist out of the canvas, if you take a musician out of their music, what you get eventually is a person who's that disrupted that they either die, or if they survive, they become so, the life is so difficult that everyone around them suffers. And he became a leader. So a leader at the time. I don't know exactly particularly why, yes, Pluto is back in Capricorn. The ingress of Pluto to Aquarius is setting up the stage for what will be, the Second World War happened when Pluto was going from Cancer to Leo. Then we had the twin bombs. Then the connection between the Pluto passage from Capricorn to Aquarius and Cancer to Leo is tremendous. I spoke about on another video about people and peoples. Okay, so people and peoples, and how the definition, okay, also from a religious perspective. Well, maybe I'll release that video, but from a religious perspective, the religion that allows you to communicate directly with the divine and does not necessitate a leader or a king or a priest is providing for "In God We Trust," America to the Americans, we the people, France to the French, and the birth of what we will later call the nation state. Okay, nations of peoples. It's very illusory, because if you didn't have land, you were not a part of the people. Then we had, slaves. Then we had subjugation of women. But it also served as opening for more people to take up both national identity but also individual rights. Okay, so if I'm a capitalist and I'm a woman, then I have, my body is my possession. You cannot do anything to my body. I will shoot you dead, and it's okay to shoot you dead before you even try anything like that, because my body is my property. Okay, and therefore I make the decisions over my body. This is the feministic, capitalistic approach. Okay, the capitalistic feminist, which exists. And then some women who are sex workers, you say, you cannot criticize me for doing so, because this is my body, it is my property. You have no right to patronize me. And you don't care about women at sex work industry, because what you offer is dehumanizing. Okay, and this is also very correct criticism. You offer dehumanizing solutions, so that will anyway get the person to be sexually harassed, to be raped, and so on and so forth. So that they just feel like, oh, the control is being taken out of their hands, but the rehabilitation or the life that is dignity is not being retrieved. So we're just standing at this juncture. I feel that because Aries was already triggered by the eclipses and will be triggered again. Okay, here is looking at the Rahu here with the midheaven. So the spirit of the times is kind of calling for this Aries chaos. And this happens when she squares Pluto, and Pluto is in between Capricorn and Aquarius. So Pluto will not remain in Capricorn. Pluto is going towards Aquarius. And before that, I was thinking about Pluto, and my thoughts of Pluto was like, when Pluto is standing at 0 degree sign, he's standing at the doorway. Again, doors here with my Mercury. So where is it? Where have you gone? I don't know if I want to know. No, sorry. Where have you gone? Anyway, so yeah, there's a talisman somewhere around here. Anyway, Pluto standing at the doorway. And when Pluto is standing at the doorway, it just got in. It doesn't really know how to handle it. Can have naivety around something. But what I was thinking about is Pluto going from Capricorn to Aquarius, or Pluto going into, ingressing into any sign. It's kind of like the child that tells their parents, I want a doggy. I want a doggy. And the parents say, are you going to take this doggy to a walk 4 times a day when it's a puppy? Are you going to feed this dog? Are you going to train this puppy? and the child bugs them so much that eventually the telos is like, okay, there's only one way out of it, and then, okay, let's take a puppy. Now the parents know where it's heading, but now Pluto ingressed into the next sign, into the 0 degrees, and the puppy is here. And now they have to take care of this puppy. Now they have to actually take a walk 4 times a day. And however cute the puppy is, or when people have a baby, or people who are childless or don't yet have a baby, look at other parents and they say, how come they scream so loud, or how come they treat these children like this? And then they have babies and they're like, how is there a seminar for people to try to avoid abandoning their children or killing their children from rage? Because the tremendous, it takes a village to raise a child, but in Western society, we do not have that village to raise a child. And in the places where you do have a village to raise a child, and if you wear short pants, then you're a whore and you're ostracized, and we're back to the Lilith story and then the Aries story again. So Pluto that will be reingressing into Aquarius twice, okay? Only 19 November 2024 do we get Pluto in Aquarius, what S.J. Anderson calls for good. Right now, the people are getting the puppy. And they have to walk this puppy 4 times a day. And they have to... and some people can tend to... these callings that reminds us of eugenics. It's like, oh, not every person can get rights. You have to work, you have to be strong, you have to this, you have to that. Not everybody gets to have their rights. Not everybody wins the prize of being in this world. And people always used to leave people out. But it's like, hey, isn't the reason that we progressed from Capricorn to Aquarius we said we're going to take the power from the government, because the government does not care for the elderly. The government does not care for the sick. The government does not care for somebody who is a bit different. The government just gives us the strongest survives. And now we are ingressing into where the people get the power. And the people get the power. You must understand, when you think about social credit score, eventually, in those societies like communist societies, the power to the people means that if a person says to the government, and this is during the transition, so-and-so, or says to the system, not even to the government, so-and-so was doing so-and-so. Now, so-and-so can't have fiscal transactions. Okay? And while we do want to preserve the ability to hold people accountable or to have certain sanctions where it's needed, we absolutely don't want to ostracize people, put them in exile, which is an Aquarius. Okay? Saturn that rules Aquarius is the exiled Saturn. Even if it's not your 12th house, it's the exiled Saturn. And when you send somebody to exile, here's a difference between a retreat. When I gave the Hitler example, he was painting nature. That's a retreat. That's, it's something you do in seclusion. You are with nature and you do that and you retain your sanity, basically. He was not allowed to retain his sanity and the world went insane. The world was insane before Hitler. But then, when somebody is on a retreat, okay, and they have the time to contemplate and they have the time to stay away from the drama, from the, I'm going to tell this, I'm going to argue this, I'm going to hit this, I'm going to slaughter this. Like, okay, let's just sit with the birds for a while and look at the flowers. And there's a different, and the change is in time, okay? Time works differently. It's not just stress, but it works differently. And then they can contemplate and they can come with more creative ideas. If you send them to exile, they will still contemplate and come with more creative ideas, but they are sent into impossible conditions and impossible situations. And what comes out after that is a person that you know, brings the natural experience of exile to the entire humanity. So the experience of sending, of ostracizing people here when Pluto will ingress into Aquarius, we meet it in the opposite polarity that is Pluto Leo. Okay, if we take 248 and we divide it in two, so 24, that would be 12, so 124, so 124 years, around 124 years. And you say most people don't live 124 years. It's true. Nearly all people don't live 124 years, but it does have implications on the world. And if you take reincarnation into account, this does mean that people will return. And what they will return to is this place that's, oh, this person that we sent into exile, that a baby is born in, in year 2200, and has a memory that they cannot even speak with anyone about exile, and they don't know how to portray that, but they carry this inside, and it's difficult to tend to this baby, it's difficult to meet the needs of this baby. It just seems like something that humanity does is always, it won't go to work. It wants, like, you were born free, all you really need is to work 20 hours a day to keep up with the Joneses. You're in the land of the free. Why don't you just bow to the flag every day? And that baby just does not. It feels like the entire world is a living satire, and eventually something pops, and that internal experience becomes an experience that he delivers to the rest of humanity. Okay, that's the story of not only Hitler but also Stalin, but also Mussolini. And history is not just, you can bury books, okay, but consciousness is beyond that. When a child is born, they see things, they feel things, they remember things, and they don't always know to give it a name. Okay, nobody told me about us being third generation to the Holocaust when I was a baby. But when I learned about the Holocaust, I was like, yeah, I knew these atrocities. And when I learned about Spanish Inquisitions, I was like, yes, those are the things that I saw that when I was a baby. Those were the things that I saw. Okay, but then I also learned about this technology, and I saw a movie. It was a Disney movie. I don't even remember which. And I was like, oh my God, what a great time to be alive. I was a child. Okay? I'm not the only. It's every child. So, it's a mixed experience of living, and you can hide documents, and you can make things go away, and you can write books, and you can reframe things, but then there is also the memory of the soul. You could say that can be biased too, yes, but there is some essence there that still exists. And we also need to be reminded that there are times where the face of karma itself changes. And I talked in my other video, I saw a video by Krasia Tassio, and Krasia Tassio is a sidereal Babylonian astrologer, pretty much one of the most ancient traditions that we know of astrology. And she said that in just 2 years she learned about karma, that now more and more people can change their chart. And in the past, maybe 1 in 1,000 people could change their the karma, or the life that they was born into, or the chart that they was born into. And now more and more people can do it, maybe through magic, maybe through other practices. More and more people can do this. And even in Greece, maybe she means Hellenistic astrology, maybe not, I don't know. But in Greece, there were people that were initiated, and they had to keep secret their teachings, and they could grow from their chart. They could affect their karma. And now when Pluto is in Saturn ruled sign, the way I see Pluto in Saturn ruled sign, Pluto decomposes something. Pluto creates something new. It can burn something to the ashes and create something new, like the phoenix from the flame. But it's also the compost in your yard. Okay, one of the teachings of kind Pluto. Can I? It is. So here I am shedding light on the hidden. So, and of course the fingerprints, those of you who know, those of you who don't know, maybe you will know, you can channel that. But the thing is, Pluto, now I got distracted. Anyway, one of the teachings of Pluto to me was Pluto is also the compost in your garden, which is also Saturn, traditionally, okay? But this notion that to compost something, to recycle something, if even the womb, okay, birth, I'm just on my moon days. And one of the things that I said, I was joking, my channeling with my moon, like all this modern women stuff and modern men. And before I got into my moon days, it was like, I'm going to be recycled. And she used the word recycled, okay? The womb basically being recycled. Okay, we're menstruating, and there's a whole construction there, just going back into the soil, or the bathroom, or the towel in the bed. And then we are rebuilding this construction. So it's recycling. Recycling is also Pluto. And what's the land that knows most for its recycling of energy, that makes energy out of poo? It's Germany, and Germany is also ruled by Scorpio, and Pluto is associated with Scorpio. So it's making energy out of secretion, which is basically poo. This is Pluto, okay? So what happens when Pluto is in Saturn sign? It's not only the compost in the yard, but it's also the notion of time itself. So we're having revelation about time. Of course, we're having revelations about Pluto itself, because Aquarius is the sign of revelations. And so we are rethinking Pluto as well, just blessed. But we also have a rejuvenation around time. We basically have a rejuvenation of karma. So we are having a cycle where it is possible to not be in these biblical times where the father ate unripe fruit and the teeth of their children or grandchildren were rotting. Okay, means I need to tend to my teeth. But we are having the times where it is possible to change the notion of karma. It is possible to perhaps leave certain types of karma behind. Okay, it is possible for me, who was descendant to people who were survivors of not war camps, but camps that were meant to kill them, and managed to escape and managed to bring food because they didn't look Jewish. So third generation to that. And like I said, when I was baby, nobody had to tell me that there was atrocities like Holocaust and such things, because I saw things, I knew that there were such things like Inquisition, like Holocaust. And I'm able to say, look, there was this person that was a painter. And if anybody would treat a person who would say, oh, I have homicidal ideation, they would say, okay, look at nature, maybe paint a nice picture, but paint like the old artist that you painted. And Hitler did that naturally. But he was not allowed to be creative. And lo and behold, my sixth house is ruled by the sun. Okay, so it is Leo. And it is in the third house, so being creative day to day, maybe with the voice, And my second house, the house of income, Aries, has Mercury in it, with Aries now transit in this Mercury. So Mercury is something you do with your hands. Okay, it is writing, it is sculpting, it is artistic. Lo and behold, okay, I'm third generation to the Holocaust. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, if somebody wanted to calm a youth down that had homicidal thinking, they would say, come, create something with your hands, do something, be creative. When I was working for a bank. A credit card company that was a company of a bank, big bank, and I had allergy. So they tested allergy, they didn't find too much. And then eventually I had allergy also to my cat, but now fortunately I don't have cat allergy. By the way, after I did energy cleansing by someone, and we wanted to cleanse one thing, it created horror there, but I no longer have cat allergy. So we were going, and it was in, we were going to acupuncture person that was basically holistic health practitioner, but from the HMO. And she said she didn't know that I'm a writer, and she said, you must every morning, because it was difficult for me to get up, every morning you must write something, you must paint, you must do this so that you will be healthy. Every morning you must paint. And I know today she was talking about second chakra and throat chakra, and my sinuses. She says you must paint, you must write. And even at work, I had a friend when I was having throat aches and I could barely speak with people, and I took allergy pills and my mouth was dry all the time. And she said, the throat holistically is way before I knew I will become holistic health practitioner. She said the throat is people that have a lot to say. People that have a lot to say, but they hold it in, they keep it inside. You must speak. And eventually I began to write. So think about that. And how making a life while making a living is also very important. The sixth house is the house of our health. If our work or service to the world does not contribute to our health, okay, we are on the process of becoming Hitler. This is why, as holistic health practitioner, I don't even take patients. I spread this knowledge. Okay, I spread this knowledge of how important it is, because I'm not looking to get money from you when you are sick, and it's like I rather paint something, okay, than take your money. In a situation where you were paying to me because of things that like eventually need to change in society. So mostly you will need to rest, mostly you will need to do more things that you enjoy doing. Even the person that I was hurt from, his friends even told him, you must do more hobbies, more this, more that. And I thought that he was doing this, so I didn't take it into account that much. And every time he had to travel, but in COVID, then it was difficult to travel, and then he became violent. Okay, so it's not a bad person, but the conditions for living were denied, and then this person became violent towards me, and I had to escape. And of course, now it is so traumatic that I'm afraid to communicate. And there's no, like, it's very, like, what he did was very, it's not something you can just patch things up. But I forgive, because I understand that there were circumstances around this, and he, even though he had the best means next to him, or holistic health practitioner and so on and so forth, it was still all that difficult. And that's the situation for people who either hurt themselves or other people. Yeah. So it's a big message that we all need to keep in mind, because we are moving towards times where Rahu is going to be Mars ruled. Mars is action. So people want to be active. But if you try to regulate how people are being active, or control or oppress the way people are being active, it's very bad. It's very bad because eventually they want to be active in a way that really nourishes them, and people are going to want to take actions about anything in their life. So people are going to want to be not the passive viewer of things, but the active instigator of change, to assert their individuality, to assert their boundaries. And when we have Aries there, then people are going to say, I am. And they say, and they're met with the society and say, no, you cannot be this. But what about, oh, they cannot be this either. And that is quite a frightening time to be alive when I think about this. And I know it's very difficult to deliver a message through something that, people are taught to hate tyranny, so they hate the people who are those leaders. They are people. They are people. And it's very difficult to receive this mirror of society. It's like, oh, we did not let this person be, now they won't let us be. It doesn't have to be this way. At any time where we let people be, we are contributing to de-escalating those things. Like I said in my other video, it was the Sedna video, Sedna story. When a person is being believed and being held at a place of honor and being assisted to live safe, to live free, then it can have so much power, and the person says, you know what, I will not kill myself today. Or maybe they were thinking of doing harm to others. I will not do this. Because there is hope in humanity, and we must preserve hope in humanity. Okay, it's not on the individual, it's on humanity that we preserve hope in humanity. The individual can try to do what they can, but it's also, because when we do get to the stories of Pluto, Leo, this is the growth of the shine and the power of the single person to do something powerful. Yes, but they get this power where from? Humanity. This is Aquarius. Okay, or from exile. And what do you do when you're amped up with exile? What eventually do you do? Okay. Eventually, you're not so kind to your fellow mankind, because your fellow mankind left you in exile, and you lost faith in humanity, and you all also began to believe that it's okay that those who don't make it don't make it. It's okay. We don't need to worry so much about those people that cannot be this, that cannot be that cannot be strong, that cannot be like this. We don't need to worry about them. In nature, they die. Okay, do we want to bring that into humanity? Because this is not the only look at nature. Animals help each other at nature. Animals of different species save. If you have a dog or a cat, that sometimes this dog was saving kittens, or a cat that was breastfeeding dog pups, or a raven that was helping a dog get food. This is also the story of nature. It's not just war. But if you send a person to forced exile, in the path of humanity is such that it is allowed that this person, unfortunately, will see the world in a struggle way. They will see it struggle, and they would rule with this vision. And this is very, very difficult. And this is something that we must do the most we can to praise tolerance, to give place to people who are marginalized in our society, and most of them are marginalized for like absolutely no reason. Okay, and to understand that if somebody is, let's say, addicted, or somebody is looking like they're bad parenting, if they don't get the help, okay, it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to reach a person. If they don't get this community assisting them and supporting them rather than criticizing and demoting them, then it's very difficult. They have to go, they have to swim against the stream. And some people want to be left alone, it's true. But if they don't get this space to just be, okay, you don't have to be ostracized. Some people just need to be in more seclusion than others, and that's okay. There's also different times that that happens. And the more tolerant we can be, and this is tolerant, okay, we're humanity, okay? The more tolerant that we can be at this time, that will first of all allows us to keep people accountable when they do harm or when they do intend to harm. It will allow us to let's do what we can to facilitate nourishing choices and to make them accessible to most of humanity, to all of humanity, because if we are so busy criticizing the choices that an individual make and we are not taking the time to facilitate frameworks that make those choices available. Let's say you want to play guitar. Anybody who's productive would tell you that. So what do? Let's say you tend to sit on the couch and watch TV. So you're gonna put the guitar right in front of you, next to the screen, a bit hiding the screen. Okay, and then you're gonna connect your phone to the screen, and on your phone, the first automatic playlist when you open like a Spotify or something, I don't know if Spotify has it, or YouTube, would be on learning how to play the song that you wanted to play. Okay, you're gonna arrange your surroundings so that it will be almost inevitable that you will eventually grab that guitar and do something. And the minute you begin to do something, it usually, if it's the right time for you to do so, so it becomes easier and you usually can't stop doing this. So let's say, let's say you want to be productive. You know, when the government wanted people to wear masks, it was all over the place. Yeah. Well, why don't we have all over the place housing first, open dialogue, non-dual experiences are not schizophrenia? Why don't we have these signs all over the place? Okay, because that requires them to allocate resources to something that benefits humanity rather than destroys and controls humanity. Whoever the people doing that now, those were the people that when Pluto was here in Cancer here, they were experiencing life, or their souls were alive back then, and now they were this exiled soul that they want to control humanity instead of doing benefit to humanity, because they went through certain experience, but they were so exiled and there was no way to turn to that they just became who they were. So but you say, well, can't a person choose who they want to be? Yes, if it is facilitated, if it is allowed, then you can, Pluto Leo was the stories, the heroic, and to some degree also Pluto Cancer, the heroic stories of the person who went against the grain and succeeded and became, Elon Musk did that. Elon Musk grew up, yes, he grew up in a wealthy family, but he grew up in psychological torment, okay? And then he made Tesla. And he makes his employees work like slaves because that's what he did, escaping his emotional trauma. Okay? So Elon Musk is a big success story. He, of course, is not self-made, we know this now, but it's like, hey, he was a child that growing up in abuse and neglect and criticism and torture, and he grew up to be a successful man. Yes, at what price? Okay, and I'm not judging Elon Musk here. There's a certain context to things where the heroic story of the person who made it against the odds is oftentimes a story about a person who preserved the humanity. I knew a person like this. They went through tremendous torture as a child, and they decided they have a fund that helps people get treatment for child abuse or child sexual offense, and when they were children, or to children who are getting this help. And eventually, this person had a therapist that was so abusive that they made them chronically suicidal. And only in 15, Cameron returned, they discovered open dialogue, and they had the first night at almost full sleep. Okay, and they were also this self-made person who said, a person who's been, and they used to say, a person who's been through what I've been through, you wouldn't expect them to believe in humanity, but I believe in they believe in humanity so much so that when I exposed it, my psychologist literally told me, your vulnerability makes me sadistic. Okay, they went and called this psychologist to have a talk. Okay, now the return was, he said to me, you're not safe in this world, you're not safe outside of this world, nobody will believe you, and they don't know what's energy. Okay, so he assaulted in energy, did what we call psychic attack. And this was not when a person has, flashbacks or dissociation. This was somebody attacks through this, and that would eventually lead me to discover magic and astrological magic. And I don't wish my enemies to be my enemies, but the thing is that that heroic story of a person who's been through such sexual abuse and still preserved their faith in humanity, the reality of it is that they did not know. They wanted to be the patient. After all this happened, they wanted to be the patient of my psychologist. Okay, they were so dissociative. And it was my psychologist who refused, because they were suing the others, the previous therapist that they had, and then they were treated by open dialogue. So it was not even when I exposed my psychologist that they woke up. Nothing woke them up. So there's nothing heroic about this story. It's a Pollyanna story. You want people to walk like Pollyannas in the world, or you want people to be successful like Elon Musk, where everybody is a slave and they're going to put a chip in your brain, and they're going to put this and they're going to put that, and they're going to control everything that's going on, Do you want to grow these people? Because these are the people that we are growing when we make such emphasis about the choices that the person makes, and we don't make an emphasis about how do we facilitate a better humanity, okay? Democratization process that began in France. It took 300 years for France to be democratic since the French Revolution. This is exactly the point of the times where Pluto is going right now. They understood what we are understanding now. Okay, what I'm understanding now, and I'm probably not that, I'm not all that much of a genius that that I'm the only one in this point of view, probably, right? But there's this understanding that a king alone, if the king is good, yes, it's good. But if a king is not good, then we have to wait until the king die. Or if you're a tyrant, then you will need to be assassinated, and then another person assassinated. And why can't we have just like a democracy and have checks and balances? So it is more difficult to do harm to people. And of course, there can be problem with bureaucracy, which we have. And we don't depend that much on the sun figure, okay? We don't depend on the king or the queen to be kind, to be virtuous, because even if our governors are quite horrible, there's a bureaucratic, there's a systematic, okay, there's an algorithm, there's already an Aquarian word that has its checks and balances. You cannot have all that much power over humanity. Okay, after the two world wars brought the German system, but even throughout the years, even the Chinese government, okay, the Chinese party, ruling party, it became more bureaucratically intricated so that there won't be another Mao. Okay, so there's no one person that can take over and be like Mao. Because Mao made mistakes, it was human. Okay? He believed that over the spirit we can all conquer matter, and it was spirit over matter. And the cultural revolution, they wanted to provoke people to work so hard and have their spirit overcoming their matter. So even if people didn't have food, even if people didn't have material resources, they were supposed to have spirit over matter and have this agrarian communism. And that showed out to be a tremendous disaster. The Great Leap Forward became a tremendous disaster. That's a human being who was having a spiritual experience that was also political and made mistakes. Following this human being, it became way more intricate for a person to try to take over the entire party, even in China. Okay, China is not considered one of the most liberal democracies, right? And so now it is a time calling for us to think, how do we make structures that allow for us to make the right choices in life and for that to be easy, and also make it a bit more difficult for us to make the wrong choices in life. Okay? Make it a bit more difficult to have a genocide, make it a lot easier to make a life while making a living. Even if a person is a painter like Hitler, that doesn't seem relevant to his times. Even if a person likes to dance or likes to sing, but they're like they're not Beyonce. Uh, even because eventually it was those people that became tyrants when they weren't granted a place in the world. So allow people a place to be. And there is also, as a person with Chiron in the fourth house, there is the intricacy of the needs of a person, because sometimes you think, well, everybody will have land, and then you have a famine. And so we ask to tolerate people. So tolerate everyone. Um, and so it's like everybody tolerated me, but nobody gave me a hug. Okay, and then it's like, okay, hug everybody. And then there's like, I was forced into hugging everyone, and that made me compliant, so much so that I did not set boundaries even in my intimate relationships, and that caused severe fertility issues and so on and so on. So you're like, those things, even when we do create this algorithm and this structure, there are intricacies to that. Like I said, when I was homeless, I was talking to a woman who had a big house, and she was living with her husband. He liked the temperature hot so that he can sleep, and she could not sleep in her own home, even though she had a big house, a big garden, and she loved her husband. It was not abusive husband, but could not sleep. Or even when I was in a shelter in Netherlands, we were in the it was a hostel, and the people were relatively kind and treated with respect. And because we were three people in the room, only three people in the room, all women, so all things were kept. People usually travel like this, but because we were homeless, we were all snoring. And so I remember I talked to the security guy and I said, it is so funny. I'm living, like, this is a hostel. We are only three people in the room. We get food. We get treated well. But I feel like I'm about to die for something that seems so insignificant. Like, it's not even because I'm homeless, because I'm treated well here, but something so minor makes life so frail, because I cannot sleep and the energy is fills around. So all he could do is listen to me. And those are also things that happen. Okay, we can be kind as we want, but there are those situations where we are called for something more. Okay, and now I'm of course advocate of housing first, and I'm advocate of living in certain surroundings that supports your well-being. If you're HSP, then you need a surrounding to support your well-being. Some people are sensitive to noise. Some people are sensitive to other people. Some people have cat allergies. Some people need to live in a mountain, and those things are vital to existence, because when you don't have that, you basically are deprived of humanity, and it is very like it's intricate. So that's my Sol Day Mercury story. I think it's probably already moon hour. Tintin. Yes. moon hour. And the ascendant is on 24 Leo. Moon is already a degree forward in 28 degrees. Separating from a square to Neptune, sextiling and the lot of fortune, opposing vertex. So yes, this was my episode for today. Thank you for being. Bye-bye.